Hey there, duelists, and welcome back to the Crystal Domain. Today we are talking about the Domain Battlebox 2.0 that I've created. Now, in the anime, right, each season of the show, there's a focal point of a summoning type, right? And for the DM era of the anime, it kind of gives mixed signals. Is it tribute summoning? Is it fusion summoning? But in my opinion, season 1 of DM is focal point is on ritual summoning. There are several pivotal points of the, Duelist Kingdom arc that are, focused on a pivotal moment when a ritual monster is summoned. BLS, Dark Magician of Chaos, Relinquished. Those are the main ones, and I don't think Zera the Mount might count, but that was Battle City, but like really early Battle City. Either way, this battle box focuses on 4 ritual monsters from back in the day as the deck masters. However, this battle box comes with a twist. And that twist is on the rules. With each DM being a ritual monster for this battle box, their respective ritual spells will be included with them in the DMZ. Now, the reason for that is that we are focusing on 4 GOAT format era ritual monsters. Those are harder to summon, and that they're very particular in how they're summoned. And with the decks being GOAT format decks, with even more particularly GOAT format, we'll get into that in a minute, that I've decided to make a rule tweak and include the respective spell card of each deckmaster with them in the DMZ. Now, I also added the life point tax for summoning the deckmaster will be attached to the ritual spell versus the ritual monster. Now, this coincides with the theme of this battle box, the Shadow Games. There is rituals, there's tributes, there's a cost to be paid, and it will be attached to the ritual, the performance of summoning the monster, as the cost of bringing out this monster versus the monster itself, not being able to be played outside of the ritual spell. It's flavorful and it fits this battle box perfectly. Ooh, sorry. Now, as I mentioned, this battle box is going to be, again, focused in GOAT format with even more particularness to GOAT format. As in, I am adhering more to restrictions of the time. So certain cards will be omitted from the lists, such as extremely stapley board wipes or very powerful, broad sweeping power spells. The idea being to encourage more interaction versus just stapley board wipes that you see in your everyday domain games, even in current decks, versus in a restricted format such as GOAT format based domain piles. Now, let's go ahead and meet our deck masters and the goals of each deck. So the first deck will focus on Blackluster Soldier. Now this is a vanilla text monster, a level 8 warrior earth ritual monster that has no abilities, big stats and 3000 attack, and that gives us a domain of earth and warrior. Now the strategy is simple. This is a classic warrior beatdown deck. This is a classic Gaia Power Earth strategy deck. A competent strategy of GOAT format, at least in earlier eras of the game, where Gaia Power Earth Warrior was a competent deck list that could aggro and quickly win games by just massive power stats. Now, we went with this because of the options. I wanted the monsters to either be recognizable, a little more iconic, or at least in this case, one of the decks being a very iconic ritual monster in Blackluster Soldier. Now, because this card does not have any text, there is a mix and match of the fact that this one has abilities, or no abilities, and the other 3 deck masters do have abilities, and we compensate by this deck being arguably the most aggressive and straightforward deck of the 4. This one just wants to summon big stuff, control the opponent with, competent trap cards, good spell cards, and competent warrior effect monsters, and the DD monsters, Exiled Force, etc. to control is needed, but for the most part, we are a straightforward aggro deck. But because this card features no abilities, this deck will feature a Board Wipe and Lightning Vortex, a card that has a cost but is a nerfed Raigeki. That way, no deck is running a straightforward Board Wipe in Dark Hole or Raigeki, and instead has to earn the Board Wipe either with an alternative cost or attached to the Deckmaster, as you'll see with other Deckmasters of this box. Now, deck number 2 will feature Shinato, King of a Higher Plane, as the Deckmaster. There's another level 8 monster, Fairy Ritual. Of course, it can only be summoned by its own spell card. And when this card destroys a defense position monster and sends it to the graveyard as a result of battle, you will inflict damage to your opponent's life points equal to the original attack of the destroyed monster. Kind of in the direction of piercing battle damage, but with a little bit of a tweak in that if it is defense position, you just straight up burn them for the attack of the monster, which is quite good. So of course our domain is light and fairy in this case. Now the point of this deck, other than having a strong DM to punish defensive plays, is to endure and outlast. We are running a number of cards in the Shinato deck to somewhat control the opponent and add twists and turns to the battle strategy. Fairy Box, Spirit Barrier, things like that to defend our life points and make attacking us straightforward difficult. To win at our own pace and slow down aggro. Now this one is to counteract the BLS deck. The most straightforward of the 4 decks. There needs to be some form of balancing act in a deck that wants to slow the game down. In this case, Shinato, a deck that wants to slow the opponent down and win against their resources, and then in turn play a powerful payoff in a DM that will punish them for being on the back pedal and playing defensively by, as with its ability, burning them for playing defensively, which is a good way to close out the game with a respectable, if not in defense, 3300 attack beat stick in a boss monster for the DM. And deck number 3 will feature the first archetype of Yu-Gi-Oh! With a DM in Dark Master Zork, a level 8 Fiend Ritual monster. Now once per turn you can roll a 6-sided die. Then you destroy all monsters your opponent controls if you roll a 1 or a 2. You destroy one monster you control if you roll 3 or 4, or 5, or destroy all monsters you control if you roll 6. Now, there is a lot of risk in this card, so this deck will feature lots of dice rolling gimmicks. Something that early Yu-Gi-Oh! Liked to do a lot of with certain cards. And of course, this does fall in line with the Arcfiend archetype. So, this deck will feature Dark and Fiend as its domain, and will be full of the Archetype Arcfiend monsters, as well as a splash of some other smaller Dark and Fiend type gimmicks to mesh well with the strategy. With the main idea of being risky gambling with solid payoffs to board wipe our opponent by having access to it via our DM, but also other meaningful effects to negate abilities, to destroy cards on the opponent's field, various things like that each of the Arcfiend monsters possess. Spells that can trick the opponent with Graceful Dice or Skull Dice to manipulate stats in combat, and then other things like re-rolling dice with Dice Reroll to try to get better abilities, or Level Conversion Lab, which can make summoning cards easier by manipulating levels. That way you could take a low guy, manipulate the level, and ritual summon easier by manipulating the level of the monsters, and things along those lines. The point being is that this will feature lots of dice rolling, which is gimmicky but fun to mess with. And lastly, we have the 4th deck featuring Legendary Flame Lord as the DM. This is a level 7 spellcaster ritual monster that each time you or your opponent activates one spell card, you put a spell counter on this card. Then you remove 3 spell counters from this card to destroy all monsters on the field except this card. The last 2 DMs are the ones that have a board wipe built in. So, what that means is that these 2 decks do not feature in-deck board wipes. They feature interaction, where Shinato and BLS feature Lightning Vortex as a in-deck option of board removal. Now, spell and trap removal we have kept also to a down low due to how good the broad swiping spell removal is of this era that is still played even in regular domain decks like Heavy Storm and Giant Trunade and things like that. We did not add these to this box. The point being is that you're meant to utilize interaction pieces as needed versus broad sweeping effects to just kind of easily swipe away threats. Now, with this DM, we of course are using a spell counter strategy. A deck that didn't quite come into its own until later with like Endymion and things like that, but we are still going to mess with it in the time capsule that is GOAT format cards that use spell counters. There's various different ways to use it. With the DM itself, I mean, for you or your opponent, that's you and 3 other players, triggering for every spell card, and then you easily pile up 3 spell counters, and then you board wipe everything except this card, which is a great way to leave an opponent open for a respectable 2400 body on this monster. Easy access board wipe via the DM, the easiest access board wipe actually, which the reason for that is that this deck is a little bit more on the glass cannon side. You are playing a burn deck. This deck will feature lots of ways to burn the opponent rather quickly, with other means of targeted removal to help you stay on top, and some monsters that can help control the board but also use spell counters for meaningful effects. Now, let's take a little bit of a closer look at each of these decks. So, starting with BLS, of course, we have very similar staples in the trap card department and the spell card department, but for the most part, this deck will feature a larger number of equip spells that benefit strategies like warriors that want to equip themselves with weapons to be stronger, with also a subset of level strategies with the Silent Swordsman and the Mystic Swordsman kit. A powerful streamline of effects that can lead you to boss monsters that are good at negating the opponent's ability to interact with you. VIA face down monsters with Mystic Swordsman and spells and things like that, with also some extra added bonuses in just the ability to quickly beef up a monster with like Mataza to swing multiple times, Benkei for FTK gimmick stuff, or even Injection Fairy Lily for massive attack gains to win out a game quickly if they are caught off guard. Shinato, again, will feature similar traps and spells, with a couple of equips here and there, but will mostly be focused on gaining life points and protecting themselves, with Sanctuary in the Sky, Fairy Box to deflect attacks on you, and some respectable monsters to control the opponent's board, and even a little bit of a subset of Banishing that we can manipulate with Soul Absorption for large life point gain, and then larger boss monsters to close out the game in the Creator and Joan, some of the agents in Archetype with like Parshath and even like Blue Eyes if we feel like summoning it. Lots of different ways to endure the game, outlast, and then beat the opponent down. Zork, of course, as mentioned, will be featuring lots of Arcfiend monsters, even the ones that, you know, are labeled in text versus not by name. Summon Skull, Arcfiend of Guilford, things like that, Mad Dog of Darkness, Arcfiend Soldier, and then some generically good cards, the means of removing stuff with Lava Golem or Dark Necrofear as a powerful boss monster. Goblin King alone can be quite respectable as a low-effort summon that could be huge because of all the fiends in play, with some decent removal, and some equip spells, of course. Now, I will note that each deck will feature a little card known as Fulfillment of the Contract, which allows you to monster reborn a ritual monster in your graveyard. This could mean if you have it in hand, you don't need to use the tax to bring your boss monster back, which is quite cool. And then, of course, we have the Flame Lord deck. This, again, will feature lots of powerful burn abilities, like Burning Lands to get rid of field spells, Wave Motion Cannon to single target a player down, Dark Snake Syndrome to put the game on a rapid clock to the end, Bad Reaction to Samochi, another card that is great at closing the game out by turning positive into negative effects. And then Fire Princess, of course, is great for the life point gain to burn the opponent down. Things like that. A competent burn strategy with a subset of respectable monsters to keep you on top, recur spell cards, utilize spell counters for positive effects, and things along those lines. Now, that will be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this snippet, this preview of the Domain BattleBox 2.0. Now, I'll be looking to make more of these battle boxes in the future. I'm already working with a couple people on other ones. I know that there's a member in the Discord working on a Kaiju battle box. I started talking to another content creator about a Super Quantum battle box. You know, it's fun that the idea that I had about how, like, people take commander cubes and they make, like, 4 specific decks to interact with each other, whether it's precons or just individual procure decks that they built to interact with each other. I also wanted to do the same thing and, you know, start creating these battle boxes that are easy for people to pick up and play and get into the format. And if these are for you, absolutely give them a try. I will have a link in the description for this battle box and all 4 decks, which can be found on my YGO Pro profile, including the other deck lists I've created, even BattleBox 1.0, featuring all 4 of the Charmer deck lists that I created for that one. And it will also, in the future, by that same link, will feature future battle boxes that I make beyond this one. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and of course, thank you for watching. You watching the video and giving me your time is worth more than any other means of support. But if you want to support this channel even further, you could subscribe, which we are nearing 500 subs. That'd be really cool to hit. And then, of course, you can like the video and comment your thoughts down below about this battle box and anything else you would like to provide, things you'd like to see on the channel, etc. I hope you guys have a great day, and once again, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Later.